The morning sun cast long shadows through the crystalline corridors of the Galactic Academy as Maya made her way to her first class. Her pale, smooth face turned slightly left and right as she walked, listening to the soft clicking sounds that escaped her lips. These weren't random noises, they were her lifeline, her way of seeing a world that remained forever dark to her eyeless sockets. The Veltar species prided themselves on having the sharpest vision in the known galaxy. Their large, multifaceted eyes could see across dozens of light spectrums, making them the best pilots, surgeons, and engineers in space. But Maya had been born different. Born broken, as her own people said. Where other Veltar had magnificent rainbow eyes that shifted colors with their emotions, Maya had smooth, pale skin covering empty sockets. Click, click, click. She made her way down the hallway, her head tilted as she listened to how the sounds bounced off the walls. She could sense the corridor widening ahead, could feel the warmth of the massive windows that looked out into space, could even detect the slight vibration in the floor that told her other students were walking nearby. But she couldn't see their faces. Couldn't see the looks of disgust and pity that followed her everywhere. "There goes the broken one," whispered Keela, a popular Veltar girl whose eyes sparkled like emeralds. "Still making those weird noises. It's so creepy." "I heard she bumped into Professor Vex yesterday," snickered another student. "Right in front of the entire advanced physics class. So embarrassing." Maya's clicking faltered for just a moment. She knew they were talking about her, could hear every cruel word. Her species had excellent hearing to go with their perfect sight, but Maya's had become even sharper to compensate for her blindness. Sometimes she wished it wasn't quite so good. She quickened her pace, her clicks becoming more rapid and urgent. The sound helped her navigate, but when she got nervous or scared, the rhythm changed. The walls seemed to echo differently, the familiar patterns of sound and reflection becoming muddled and confusing. "Look at her go," laughed Zorn, a large Veltar male whose voice carried easily down the corridor. Like a defective bat trying to find its way home. The group of students erupted in laughter, and Maya felt her face burn with shame. She clicked faster, desperately trying to map out a path to her classroom, but the mockery was drowning out her ability to concentrate. The sounds were bouncing wrong, coming back at odd angles that made no sense. She veered left, thinking she was following the familiar path to biology class, but instead found herself heading toward a dead end. Her hand struck the wall with a sharp slap, sending a jolt of pain up her arm. Behind her, the laughter grew louder. "Oh, this is too good," Keela called out. "The broken one can't even walk straight." Maya spun around, clicking frantically now, trying to find an escape route. But panic had set in, and her natural sonar was failing her. She stumbled forward, her shoulder crashing into another wall. Then her knee connected with a low bench, sending her sprawling across the polished floor. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and for a moment she just lay there, breathing hard. Her palms stung where they'd scraped against the ground, and she could feel a warm trickle of blood running down her shin. But worse than the physical pain was the sound of the laughter echoing off the walls around her. "Pathetic," someone muttered. "How did something like that even get into the academy?" asked another voice. Maya pushed herself up on shaking arms and tried to get to her feet, but her sense of direction was completely gone. She reached out blindly, her fingers finding only empty air. Another step, another collision with something solid. This time it was a decorative pillar, and the impact sent her reeling backward. "This is actually painful to watch," Zorn said, though his tone suggested he was enjoying every second of it. Tears of frustration and humiliation burned Maya's eyes, the only moisture those empty sockets would ever produce. She clicked desperately, but the sounds were coming back all wrong. Everything was echoing strangely, the familiar acoustic map of the corridor completely scrambled by her fear and embarrassment. She stumbled forward again, her hands outstretched, searching for anything that might guide her to safety. Her fingers found a wall, and she pressed her back against it, sliding down until she was sitting on the cold floor. The clicking stopped as she pulled her knees up to her chest and tried to make herself as small as possible. "Had enough entertainment for one day?" Keela's voice was right above her now. "Maybe you should consider transferring to a school for the disabled. This academy is for the elite, not for broken specimens like you." The group moved on, their footsteps and cruel laughter fading down the corridor. Maya sat alone, her body shaking with silent sobs. Blood trickled down her leg, and her hands throbbed from where they'd hit the walls. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in her chest. This was her life at the academy. Every day brought new humiliation, new reminders that she didn't belong here among the brightest students in the galaxy. The Veltar believed that physical perfection was a reflection of inner worth, and by their standards, Maya was worthless. She sat there for several more minutes, listening to the distant sounds of normal student life continuing around her. Eventually, her breathing steadied and she began to click again, softly now, carefully mapping out her immediate surroundings. The corridor was empty, the cruel voices gone. Maya slowly got to her feet, using the wall for support. She had to get to her dormitory, had to clean these wounds before anyone else saw them. As she began to make her way carefully down the hall, she didn't notice the human student who had been watching from around the corner, his face etched with concern and something that looked like anger at the injustice he'd just witnessed. Jake found Maya 3 days later in the academy's quiet study wing, tucked away in a corner alcove where most students never ventured. She sat cross-legged on a cushioned bench, her fingers moving across the surface of a strange device that projected three-dimensional sound patterns into the air around her. "That's incredible," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "What is it?" Maya's head turned toward his voice, and for the first time since he'd started observing her from afar, he saw her face without the mask of pain and humiliation. She looked curious, almost hopeful. "It's an acoustic mapper," she said, her voice carrying a slight musical quality common to her species. "I'm studying the resonance patterns of different materials. Most people use visual scanners, but sound can tell you so much more about the internal structure of things." Jake stepped closer, genuinely fascinated. He'd been an engineering student back on Earth before everything went wrong, and he recognized brilliance when he saw it. "Can you show me how it works?" A small smile played at the corners of Maya's mouth, the first genuine expression of happiness he'd seen from her. She gestured to the space beside her on the bench. "Sit down. But you'll have to be quiet and really listen." As Jake settled beside her, Maya began to explain her work in a way that opened his eyes to an entirely different way of experiencing the world. She described how different metals rang with unique frequencies, how the density of materials could be measured by the way sound traveled through them, how even the emotional state of living beings could be detected by the subtle changes in their heartbeat and breathing patterns. "Right now," she said, tilting her head toward him, "your heart is beating slightly faster than normal. You're curious but also nervous. There's tension in your shoulders, you carry stress there. And..." She paused, her expression becoming more serious. "There's guilt. Deep guilt that sits heavy in your chest." Jake felt his breath catch. It was unsettling how accurately she could read him through sound alone, but also strangely comforting. He hadn't talked to anyone about his past since arriving at the academy. "You're right," he admitted. "I used to design weapons systems. Military-grade stuff. My last project. It was supposed to be precise, surgical. But something went wrong with the targeting algorithm." His voice grew quiet. "A whole village. 300 people including kids. Gone because of my mistake." Maya turned her face toward him fully, and though her empty sockets couldn't meet his eyes, he felt seen in a way that was deeper than visual contact. "Is that why you're here? Studying peaceful applications of technology?" "Yeah. Trying to build things that help instead of hurt. Though I'm not sure I'll ever balance the scales." Jake ran a hand through his hair. "Why are you telling me this? About your abilities, I mean. From what I've seen, most students here treat you like a broken freak?" Maya's laugh held no bitterness, just tired acceptance. "Because you're the first person who's asked about my work instead of my disability. The first person who seemed genuinely interested in what I can do rather than what I can't do." Over the following weeks, Jake found himself spending more and more time with Maya. She showed him how her acoustic mapping could reveal stress fractures in building materials that visual inspections missed entirely. How she could navigate complex spaces in complete darkness better than most people could with full lighting. How her ability to read emotional states through sound made her incredibly insightful about people's true feelings and motivations. The other day, Professor Chen was lecturing about quantum resonance. Maya explained as they worked together on a project mapping the Academy's structural integrity. But his voice patterns told me he was excited about something else entirely. Turns out he'd just gotten approval for a research grant he'd been hoping for all semester. His joy was practically singing through his words. Jake found himself laughing more in Maya's company than he had in months. Her perspective on the world was unlike anything he'd encountered. She experienced beauty in ways that sighted people could never imagine, the intricate symphony of a busy cafeteria, the rhythmic poetry of footsteps in hallways, the complex harmonies created by the Academy's environmental systems. "Close your eyes," she said one afternoon as they sat in the observation lounge overlooking the Academy's central courtyard. "Really close them. Don't cheat." Jake obeyed and immediately felt disoriented. The familiar visual landmarks were gone, leaving only sound and sensation. Now listen, Maya whispered. Not just to the obvious sounds. Listen deeper. Gradually, Jake began to pick up on things he'd never noticed before. The way conversations created overlapping patterns of rhythm and tone. How different species had distinctive footfall patterns, the light, quick steps of the Veltar, the heavy, deliberate movements of the rock-like Threnodidae, the almost silent gliding of the gaseous whispers. There, Maya said softly. Do you hear it? The maintenance droid in the East Wing just started its evening cleaning cycle. The water reclamation system is running at about 80% efficiency today, you can tell by the pitch of the pumps. And Professor Vex is walking toward the library, probably to research something for tomorrow's lecture. His steps always get more purposeful when he's excited about a topic. When Jake opened his eyes, the world looked different somehow. Richer. More layered. How do you remember all of that? All the different patterns and what they mean? It's just how I experience everything, Maya said with a shrug. Your brain probably stores thousands of visual details every day without you thinking about it. Mine does the same thing with sound. But their growing friendship hadn't gone unnoticed. The group of Veltar students who delighted in tormenting Maya had expanded their cruelty to include Jake as well. Look at the human pet, Keela sneered one day as Jake and Maya worked together in the engineering lab. Does it make you feel good to hang around with something even more pathetic than yourself? At least humans have working sensory organs, Zorn added with a laugh. Though apparently not enough brain cells to choose better company. Jake felt his hands clench into fists, but Maya placed a gentle hand on his arm. Through their weeks of friendship, she'd learned to read his emotional states as clearly as anyone else's. They're not worth it, she murmured. Getting angry only gives them what they want. But Jake could see how the constant harassment was wearing on her. Even her remarkable resilience had limits, and the daily cruelty was taking its toll. Some days she seemed smaller, more fragile, as if she was slowly disappearing under the weight of their mockery. You know what I don't understand? Jake said one evening as they sat in Maya's dorm room, working on acoustic analysis algorithms. They act like you're useless, but you're probably the most talented student in this entire academy. Your insights into material science are revolutionary. Your navigation abilities are superhuman. You can read people better than a trained psychologist. How can they not see that? Maya was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on her desk surface. Because seeing requires more than just working eyes, she finally said. It requires understanding. And they've never tried to understand anything beyond their own narrow definition of perfection. Jake looked around her small room, noticing how she'd organized everything by texture and sound rather than appearance. Her possessions were few but carefully chosen materials that provided rich acoustic feedback, tools designed for tactile rather than visual use, recordings of complex soundscapes from worlds across the galaxy. Their loss, he said firmly. Their complete and total loss. For the first time since he'd known her, Maya's smile reached all the way to her voice, filling it with warmth and gratitude that needed no words to express. The expedition shuttle touched down on Kepler 442b just as the twin suns were setting, casting strange purple shadows across the ancient landscape. Jake pressed his face to the porthole, staring out at the massive stone structures that rose from the desert floor like the bones of some long-dead giant. The ancients built this place over 10,000 years ago, Professor Hendricks announced to the group of 20 students who had been selected for the archaeological expedition. What you see here represents the most advanced civilization we've ever discovered. These ruins predate every known spacefaring species by millennia. Maya sat quietly in her seat, her head tilted as she listened to the sounds filtering through the shuttle's hull. Even through the metal and insulation, she could hear something that made her frown with concentration. The acoustic properties are all wrong, she murmured to Jake, who sat beside her. Stone structures this old should sound solid, dense. But there's an echo underneath, like there are hollow spaces where there shouldn't be any. What do you mean? Jake asked, though he'd learned to trust Maya's unusual perceptions completely. It's like. Maya paused, searching for the right words. Imagine you're in a house that looks normal from the outside, but when you walk around inside, your footsteps echo strangely because there are secret rooms behind the walls. That's what this place sounds like to me. As the group disembarked and began setting up their base camp, Maya's discomfort grew stronger. The ancient stones hummed with a frequency that seemed to resonate in her bones, and every step she took on the surface sent back echoes that spoke of vast emptiness beneath their feet. The next morning, Professor Hendricks divided the students into research teams. Jake and Maya found themselves assigned to structural analysis, tasked with using ground-penetrating radar to map the foundations of the main temple complex. "This is perfect," Jake said as they unpacked their equipment. "Your acoustic mapping combined with the radar should give us the most detailed underground survey anyone's ever done here." Maya nodded, but her expression remained troubled. As she began her sound-based analysis, clicking softly and listening to the returning echoes, her frown deepened. "Jake, there's something massive down there. Not just rooms or tunnels. It's like there's an entire city underneath the surface level." "That's impossible," said Dr. Reeves, the expedition's lead archaeologist, who had overheard Maya's comment. "We've done extensive surveys of this site. The temples sit on solid bedrock." "With respect, sir," Maya replied politely, "your surveys used conventional ground-penetrating radar and seismic sensors. Those methods work well for detecting large cavities, but they can miss complex networks of smaller spaces. Sound behaves differently, it finds every crack, every hollow, every empty space no matter how small." Dr. Reeves' expression showed barely concealed irritation. "Miss, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I've been studying these ruins for 15 years. I think I would know if there was an underground city beneath them." But Jake had learned to trust Maya's abilities completely. "What if we just check? Run a deep acoustic scan of the area she's indicating?" "Fine," Dr. Reeves said with the tone of someone humoring a child. "But when it comes back showing solid rock, we move on to actual scientific work." Maya spent the next 3 hours conducting the most detailed acoustic survey she'd ever attempted. She moved systematically across the temple plaza, clicking at different frequencies and carefully analyzing every returning sound. Jake watched her work with fascination, the way she tilted her head to catch subtle variations in echo patterns, how she adjusted her clicking speed and pitch to probe deeper into the stone. When she finally straightened up, her face was pale with excitement. "Jake, this is incredible. There's not just empty space down there, there are artificial structures. Chambers with perfect geometric shapes. Corridors that run in straight lines for hundreds of meters. And something else." "What?" "There are spaces down there that don't echo properly. Like the sound is being absorbed by something that shouldn't exist in a 10,000-year-old ruin." Jake ran the conventional radar scan over the same area, and his equipment showed exactly what Dr. Reeves had predicted: solid rock with no significant cavities. But Maya's acoustic analysis painted a completely different picture. "Look at this," Jake said, showing Maya the comparison on his tablet screen. "Your sound mapping shows a massive complex of underground chambers, but the radar shows nothing. That's not possible unless whatever's down there is designed to be invisible to conventional scanning methods," Maya finished. "But sound doesn't lie. There's definitely something there." When they presented their findings to Dr. Reeves, his reaction was swift and dismissive. "This is exactly what I expected. The human student's equipment shows reality solid bedrock. The Veltar girl's condition is causing her to misinterpret natural acoustic variations as artificial structures." "But sir," Jake protested, "Maya's acoustic mapping has been proven accurate in dozens of previous applications. Her techniques revealed structural problems in the Academy's engineering wing that saved hundreds of lives." "That's different," Dr. Reeves snapped. "She was working with modern structures made of known materials. These are ancient alien ruins made of stone we don't fully understand. Her disability is causing her to imagine patterns that don't exist." Jake felt anger building in his chest at the casual cruelty of the man's words, but Maya placed a restraining hand on his arm. Through weeks of friendship, she'd learned to read his emotional state as clearly as her own. "It's okay," she whispered. "I know what I heard down there. That's enough for now." But Jake wasn't ready to let it go. That night, while the rest of the expedition slept, he and Maya returned to the temple plaza with portable drilling equipment he'd borrowed from the geological survey team. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked as he positioned the drill over the spot where Maya's acoustic mapping had indicated the largest underground chamber. "Absolutely certain," Maya replied. "There's a hollow space exactly 12 meters down, roughly 30 meters across. If I'm wrong, we'll hit solid rock and that'll be the end of it." The drill bit through the surface stone easily, then encountered a layer of different material, something harder and denser than the temple blocks above. But at exactly 12 meters, just as Maya had predicted, the resistance suddenly disappeared. "We're through," Jake whispered excitedly. "You were right, there's definitely a hollow space down here." They lowered a fiber optic camera through the drilled hole, and what they saw on the tiny monitor screen took both their breaths away. The chamber below wasn't rough-hewn stone like the temples above. It was perfectly smooth, made of some kind of metallic material that seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. My God, Jake breathed. Maya, this isn't just an underground room. This is technology. Advanced technology that's been hidden here for thousands of years. Maya listened intently as Jake described what he was seeing through the camera. But her acoustic senses were telling her something even more remarkable. Jake, there's power down there. I can hear it, a very faint electrical hum. After 10,000 years, something in those chambers is still active. They spent the rest of the night documenting everything they could through the small hole, taking detailed photographs and acoustic recordings. What they discovered was evidence of a vast underground complex filled with technology that seemed far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations had achieved. When dawn broke and the rest of the expedition began to stir, Jake and Maya hurried back to their tent to review the night's findings. They had discovered something that could revolutionize understanding of ancient civilizations and advanced technology. But when they approached Dr. Reeves with their evidence the next morning, his reaction was not what they expected. Absolutely not, he said after glancing briefly at their photographs. I will not have this expedition's reputation damaged by wild claims based on unauthorized drilling and the fantasies of a disabled student. But sir, Jake insisted, the evidence is right here. Maya's acoustic analysis was completely accurate. There's an entire technological complex beneath these ruins. What I see here, Dr. Reeves replied coldly, is a human student who got lucky with a random drilling site, and who is now trying to give credit to his alien friend's supposed abilities. The discovery, such as it is clearly the result of human intuition and engineering skill. Jake stared at the man in disbelief. That's not what happened at all. Maya's acoustic mapping located that chamber precisely. Without her abilities, we never would have found it. That's your opinion, Dr. Reeves said dismissively. My report will reflect that human analytical skills led to the discovery of possible underground structures. The Veltar students' involvement will be noted as supportive. Maya, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. Dr. Reeves, I have detailed acoustic recordings that prove exactly how the discovery was made. The evidence speaks for itself. Evidence can be interpreted many different ways, the professor replied with a cold smile. And I think you'll find that the interpretation that matters is the one that comes from the expedition leader. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. This is completely unfair. Maya made this discovery. Her abilities, her insight, her analysis, that's what found those chambers. You can't just erase her contribution and claim it was human intuition. I can do exactly that, Dr. Reeves said flatly. And if either of you continue to challenge my authority on this expedition, you'll find yourselves sent back to the academy with failing grades for insubordination. Jake looked at Maya, seeing the quiet resignation in her posture. She'd been through this kind of dismissal and erasure her entire life. But Jake had been raised to believe that truth mattered, that credit should go where it was earned. Then send us back, he said firmly. Because I won't be part of a lie that steals Maya's achievement. Dr. Reeves smiled coldly. Very well. Pack your equipment. Both of you will be on the next transport back to the academy. And don't expect any recommendations from me for future archaeological work. As they packed their belongings under the hostile stares of the other expedition members, Maya remained quiet and composed. But Jake could see the hurt in the set of her shoulders, the way she held her head slightly down as if trying to make herself invisible. I'm sorry, he said quietly as they loaded their gear. I know how much this discovery meant to you. Maya shook her head. The discovery still happened. The truth is still the truth even if they refuse to acknowledge it. And Jake, thank you for standing up for me. No one's ever done that before. As their transport lifted off from the ancient ruins, carrying them away from the greatest archaeological discovery of the century, neither Jake nor Maya could have imagined that their punishment would soon lead to something far more important than academic recognition. The underground chambers they'd found contained more than just ancient technology. They held the key to a connection between species that would change both their lives forever. The Academy's emergency alarms were screaming when Jake and Maya's transport touched down 3 days early from their aborted expedition. Red warning lights flashed across the landing bay, and students were running in panic toward the evacuation shuttles. What's happening? Jake shouted to a passing security officer as he and Maya grabbed their gear. Corporate raiders, the officer yelled back without stopping. Nexus Corporation. They're after the archaeological data from the Kepler site. All students need to evacuate immediately. Jake felt his blood run cold. Nexus Corporation was one of the galaxy's largest weapons manufacturers, known for stealing advanced technology and turning it into instruments of war. If they were here, it meant someone had leaked information about the underground discovery he and Maya had made. The chambers, Maya said quietly, her face pale with realization. They're here for the technology we found. Explosions echoed from somewhere deep within the academy as the raiders blasted their way through the outer defenses. The building's lights flickered and went out, leaving only the pulsing red glow of emergency power. All students to evacuation point Alpha, a voice announced over the failing communication system. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. But as Jake and Maya tried to follow the crowd toward the shuttles, another explosion rocked the academy. This one was much closer, and the ceiling of the main corridor collapsed, blocking their path. Dust and debris filled the air, and the emergency lighting failed completely, plunging them into absolute darkness. Around them, Jake could hear other students crying out in confusion and fear. Without the normal lighting and with dust clouding the air, even the Veltar students with their perfect vision were struggling to navigate. "We're trapped," someone screamed. "The passage is completely blocked. There has to be another way out," another voice called, but Jake could hear the panic rising in the crowd. That's when Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting clearly through the chaos. "Everyone listen to me. I can get us out of here, but you need to follow my instructions exactly." In the darkness, species didn't matter anymore. The Veltar students who had spent months mocking Maya's blindness now turned toward her voice like it was their only hope of survival. "How?" Keela's voice was small and frightened, completely different from her usual cruel tone. "Sound," Maya replied simply. "I can map our surroundings using echolocation. There are maintenance corridors that run parallel to the main hallways. I can guide us through them to safety." Maya began clicking softly, the same sounds that had earned her so much mockery now becoming the lifeline for dozens of trapped students. Jake watched in amazement as she quickly analyzed the acoustic feedback and started leading the group through a maze of service tunnels that most people didn't even know existed. "This way," she called, her voice steady and confident. "There's a junction ahead that connects to the east wing. Keep your hands on the walls and follow my voice." For 20 minutes, Maya guided them through the hidden passages of the academy, her acoustic navigation working perfectly even as explosions continued to shake the building above them. Jake stayed close behind her, marveling at how she moved with complete confidence through corridors she'd probably never physically walked before. "Almost there," Maya announced as they approached what her echolocation told her was an exit. "There's a maintenance hatch that leads directly to the emergency landing pad." They emerged into the night air to find evacuation shuttles already departing, their running lights disappearing into the star-filled sky. But more importantly, they were alive and safe, thanks entirely to Maya's abilities. "You saved us," Zorn said quietly, his usual arrogance completely gone. "Without you we would have died in there." Maya just nodded, but Jake could see her attention was focused elsewhere. Her head was tilted toward the academy building, and her expression was growing more concerned by the moment. "What is it?" Jake asked. "There are still people trapped in the lower levels," Maya said. "I can hear them voices calling for help from somewhere near the archaeology department. The raiders' jamming is interfering with the emergency communications, so the rescue teams don't know they're there." Jake looked back at the academy, where fires were now visible through several windows and the structure was clearly becoming more unstable with each explosion. "Maya, it's too dangerous. The building could collapse at any moment." "But people will die if no one helps them," Maya replied. "And I'm the only one who can navigate through that chaos." Before Jake could stop her, Maya was already heading back toward the damaged building. Jake cursed and ran after her, knowing he couldn't let her face the danger alone. Inside, the academy was a nightmare of twisted metal, fallen debris and spreading fires. The raiders had done massive damage in their search for the archaeological data, and the building's structural integrity was failing rapidly. Maya moved through the destruction with supernatural grace, her clicking providing a constant stream of navigation data that allowed her to find safe paths through the wreckage. But Jake could see that even her abilities were being pushed to their limits by the chaos and destruction around them. "There," Maya said as they reached the archaeology wing. "Behind that collapsed wall. 3 people, maybe 4. They're trapped but alive." Jake grabbed emergency cutting tools from a nearby maintenance station and began working to clear a path through the debris. But as he worked, the building shuddered ominously, and large cracks appeared in the walls around them. "Jake, we need to hurry," Maya said urgently. "The whole structure is about to come down." That's when they heard it, the distinct whine of energy weapons charging up somewhere above them. The raiders had found what they were looking for in the archaeology department's servers, and now they were preparing to destroy the evidence of their theft. They're going to bring down the whole building, Jake realized with horror. When those weapons fire, the remaining support structure won't be able to hold. Maya's face went pale as the implications hit her. The people were trying to rescue, the evacuation teams outside, everyone still in the building. Jake's mind raced as he tried to think of a solution. Then he remembered something from their discovery at the ruins, the advanced technology they'd found in the underground chambers. Dr. Reeves had downloaded all the scan data to the Academy's computers before dismissing their findings. The neural interface technology, Jake said suddenly. From the Kepler site. If the data is still in the archaeology department's systems. What are you talking about? Maya asked, confused. The ancient technology we found, it included neural interface systems that could link different minds together. If I could access that data and adapt it. Jake trailed off as the full implications of what he was considering hit him. The technology was theoretical, untested, and potentially lethal. But it might be their only chance to save everyone in the building. Maya, listen to me carefully. Your echolocation abilities are incredible, but they're limited by your individual processing power. What if we could share sensory input between us? Combine my visual processing with your acoustic mapping? Maya stared at him in shock. Jake, you don't understand what you're suggesting. Neural interface technology is incredibly dangerous. Even if it worked, the feedback could damage both our minds permanently. Another explosion shook the building, and Jake could hear the trapped people calling for help with increasing desperation. Above them, the raiders' weapons were powering up for their final destructive blast. We're out of time, Jake said grimly. I'm going to try to access the interface data and create a connection between us. But Maya, you need to understand, this will probably destroy my vision permanently. The human brain isn't designed to process the kind of sensory input you use for echolocation. No, Maya said firmly. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Jake replied, already moving toward the archaeology department's computer terminal. And I'm not doing this just for you. I'm doing it for everyone who's going to die if this building comes down. As Jake's fingers flew over the keyboard, accessing the alien technology data they discovered, Maya grabbed his arm. Jake, please. Think about what you're giving up. Your sight, your future, everything. Jake turned to look at her, seeing her face clearly for what might be the last time. Maya, you've shown me more in the past few months than I saw in my entire life before I met you. You've taught me that there are ways of experiencing the world that go far beyond just looking at it. If losing my sight means gaining your abilities and saving lives, then it's worth it. The building shuddered again, more violently this time. Cracks were spreading across the walls, and Jake could hear the ominous creaking of metal under stress. Besides, Jake added with a slight smile, someone once told me that seeing requires more than just working eyes. Maybe it's time I learned what that really means. Before Maya could protest further, Jake activated the neural interface program, feeling the alien technology reaching into his mind with tendrils of energy that burned like fire through his consciousness. The last thing he saw with his human vision was Maya's face, filled with fear and gratitude and something deeper that made the sacrifice feel like the most important thing he'd ever done. Then the connection formed and everything changed forever. 6 months after the Academy attack, Maya walked through the rebuilt corridors with a confidence that still amazed everyone who saw her. But it wasn't just confidence, it was something entirely new. Her movements were fluid and purposeful, her head held high as she navigated spaces that would have been impossible for her before. The neural connection with Jake had done more than anyone could have imagined. Instead of simply sharing his human vision, the alien technology had created something unprecedented, a hybrid sensory system that combined the best of both species' abilities. Maya could now see the world in ways that no single being ever had before. She experienced Jake's human color vision, seeing the brilliant blues of Earth's skies and the warm yellows of sunlight for the first time in her life. But layered on top of that were her own enhanced electromagnetic perceptions, allowing her to see energy fields, heat signatures, and the invisible flows of power that ran through every living thing. It's like having superpowers, she had told Jake during one of their early sessions with the medical team. I can see the electrical activity in people's brains, watch their emotions change in real time. I can detect structural weaknesses in buildings by seeing how energy moves through the materials. It's incredible. Jake, meanwhile, had adapted to his new reality with the same determination he'd once applied to engineering problems. The loss of his human vision had been devastating at first. The world plunged into permanent darkness, his dreams filled with colors and images he would never see again. But as Maya's echolocation abilities began to develop in his mind, he discovered a different kind of sight entirely. He could now navigate using sound waves with precision that amazed even Maya. His clicking had become sophisticated and musical, creating detailed three-dimensional maps of his surroundings that were more accurate than most visual surveys. He could detect heartbeats through walls, identify people by their breathing patterns, and sense emotional states through tiny changes in posture and movement. "You're actually better at this than I ever was," Maya had admitted during one of their practice sessions. "Your engineering background gives you a mathematical understanding of sound physics that makes your echolocation incredibly precise." The neural link between them remained partially active, creating a bond that went far beyond friendship. They could sense each other's emotions, share complex thoughts without words, and coordinate their movements with perfect synchronization. It was a connection that scientists were calling the first successful interspecies neural bridge in galactic history. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in how others treated Maya. The same Veltar students who had once mocked her blindness now approached her with something bordering on awe. Word had spread throughout the academy about how she had saved dozens of lives during the raid, and her unique abilities were no longer seen as disabilities but as extraordinary gifts. "Maya, wait up," Keela called out one morning as Maya walked toward her advanced xenobiology class. The popular Veltar girl who had once been Maya's cruelest tormentor now seemed almost nervous as she approached. "I wanted to thank you again," Keela said quietly, "for getting us out during the attack. And I wanted to apologize for everything before. We were horrible to you and you saved our lives anyway." Maya studied Keela's face, her enhanced vision showing her the genuine remorse in the girl's electromagnetic field. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. Is it true what they're saying? That you and Jake are starting some kind of research institute?" Maya nodded. "The Sensory Bridge Institute. We're working on ways to help different species share sensory abilities safely. What happened to us was dangerous and unpredictable, but we think we can develop controlled methods that don't require the risks we took." The project had become Maya and Jake's shared passion. Using the data from the ancient alien technology and their own experience as test subjects, they were developing neural interface systems that could allow temporary sensory sharing between individuals of different species. Their lab was located in the rebuilt East Wing of the Academy, a space specially designed to accommodate both visual and acoustic research methods. Maya had insisted that all the equipment be accessible to both sighted and blind researchers, creating an environment where different types of perception were valued equally. "Good morning, you two," Dr. Chin greeted them as they entered the lab. The professor had become their biggest supporter after witnessing their rescue efforts during the raid. "How are the calibration tests going?" "Better than expected," Jake replied, settling down at his workstation. His desk was arranged entirely by touch and sound, with raised markers and audio feedback systems that allowed him to work as efficiently as any sighted researcher. "We've successfully created temporary neural bridges between volunteers of the same species. The next step is testing cross-species connections." Maya pulled up holographic displays that showed brain scan data from their latest experiments. Her enhanced vision allowed her to see patterns in the neural activity that others missed, spotting connections and abnormalities that conventional analysis overlooked. "The key is finding the right frequency resonance between different neural structures," she explained to Dr. Chin. "Each species' brain operates on slightly different electrical patterns. We need to create a translation protocol that allows those patterns to sync without causing damage." Their work was revolutionary, but it was also deeply personal. Every breakthrough brought them closer to understanding their own transformation and helping others experience the world through different perspectives. During lunch break, Maya and Jake often sat in the Academy's Memorial Garden, a quiet space created to honor those lost during the corporate raid. They would work together on their research notes, their conversation a mixture of spoken words and shared thoughts through their neural connection. "Do you ever regret it?" Maya asked one afternoon as they reviewed test data. "Giving up your sight for this?" Jake was quiet for a moment, his head tilted as he listened to the complex soundscape of the garden, students talking in the distance, maintenance drones humming overhead, the soft splash of water in nearby fountains. "Never," he said finally. "I thought sight was about seeing things as they are. But what I have now, it's about understanding things as they truly exist. The sounds, the patterns, the connections between everything. It's a different kind of sight, but it's deeper somehow." Maya smiled, her enhanced vision showing her the warmth and contentment in Jake's electromagnetic field. "I feel the same way about gaining vision. I can see colors and light now, but more importantly, I can see the energy that connects all living things. It's like the universe revealed a hidden layer that was always there. Their neural connection pulsed with shared understanding and affection. They had found something together that neither could have achieved alone, a way of experiencing reality that transcended the limitations of any single species. Word of their work had spread beyond the Academy. Researchers from across the galaxy were requesting access to their techniques. Medical teams wanted to use their sensory bridging technology to help disabled individuals. Military strategists were interested in enhanced reconnaissance abilities. Even artists and musicians were excited about the creative possibilities of experiencing the world through different sensory systems. "We've received another funding proposal," Maya announced as she reviewed their morning communications. "The Galactic Medical Council wants to sponsor a full research division focused on therapeutic applications." "That's incredible," Jake replied. "Remember when we were just two outcasts trying to map some old ruins?" Maya laughed, the sound carrying notes of joy that her enhanced hearing revealed in perfect harmony. "Now we're supposedly the foremost experts on interspecies neural integration. Life takes some strange turns." As evening approached, they made their way back to the dormitory wing. Maya's room had been redesigned to accommodate both their needs, with surfaces that provided rich acoustic feedback for Jake and visual displays optimized for Maya's hybrid perception. They settled into their evening routine, reviewing research data, planning the next day's experiments, and simply enjoying each other's company. Their transformation had given them abilities beyond imagination, but perhaps more importantly, it had given them a partnership that exemplified the best of what different species could achieve together. "Jake," Maya said softly as they prepared for sleep, "thank you. For everything. For seeing past my disability, for believing in my abilities, for sacrificing your sight to save others. You gave me more than vision, you gave me a future I never thought possible." Jake reached out and found her hand, their fingers intertwining as their neural connection hummed with shared contentment. "Maya, you taught me that strength comes in forms most people never recognize. You showed me that being different isn't a weakness, it's a superpower waiting to be discovered." Outside their window, the Academy's lights twinkled like stars, each one representing dreams and possibilities that extended far beyond any single world or species. Maya and Jake had found something precious in their transformation, not just enhanced abilities, but proof that the greatest discoveries came not from seeing the world as it appeared to be, but from understanding it as it truly was. Their story had become legend throughout the galaxy, the blind alien girl and the human who gave up his sight to save lives, only to discover that true vision came from seeing with more than just eyes. Together, they had opened a doorway to a future where the barriers between species could be bridged not through force or politics, but through the simple act of learning to see the world through someone else's experience. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and Maya and Jake were just beginning to explore them together.